In order to understand the craziness of the DuPont family, we have to go all the way back to 1810. In 1810, Pierre Samuel DuPont, the patriarch of the DuPont family, was 69 years old. After narrowly escaping the guillotine during the French Revolution, he fled to the young United States with his family. But he didn't come simply to start over. He came to build an empire that would become one of the wealthiest dynasties in American history. Built from other people's suffering, built from war, built from trauma, built from industries that supplied nations preparing for conflict. Before he passed away, Pierre left behind something even more fascinating than his fortune. He left behind instructions. In letters to his sons and their wives, he expressed a vision for the future of the family. He believed the next generation should not merely share the DuPont name, they should also be united through legal marriage. In one letter, he wrote that cousins should marry because they could be assured of the honesty of soul and purity of blood. Those were not simply poetic words. They are part of a family contract. Over the next century, at least 7 documented marriages occurred between first or second cousins within the DuPont family. At the same time that these marriages were occurring, the family established councils that officially existed to oversee the family's business interests and shared wealth. Yet critics and some researchers, rightfully so, have questioned whether these close family structures also helped preserve the dynasty's traditions and social boundaries far beyond business alone. Coincidence? Perhaps. But as the generations passed, something else began to emerge. A pattern. More wealth, more influence, and an extraordinary number of family tragedies. Mental illness, body dysmorphia, isolation, broken relationships, bizarre behavior, public scandals, and eventually one of the most shocking unalivings in modern American history. On January 26th of 1996, Olympic gold medalist Dave Schultz was unalived on the grounds of the Foxcatcher estate by one of the richest men in America, the great-great-great-grandson of Pierre Samuel DuPont, John DuPont. Was John simply a deeply troubled man? Or was he the final chapter in a story that began almost 2 centuries earlier? Today, we're going to be tracing the DuPont family live from revolutionary France to America's industrial empire to Foxcatcher, asking one question that historians, psychologists, and conspiracy researchers have all approached from different angles. Was the DuPont bloodline cursed? Or did the family create a condition for its own tragedy? Welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. My name is Bryce, and we're going to be getting into this live for this Mystery Monday. But before we get into it, just a special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters, our Substack donors, and our YouTube members. Without you guys, this channel would truly not be possible. If you like what you see today, folks, and you want to help us keep the work going, keep the lights on here at Esoteric Atlanta, there are ways to help down in the description box below. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I am so excited about this show today. We are simulcasting from both YouTube and Rumble. I cannot see a lot of what's going on Rumble, so if there's an issue, I hope there's not. I'll check it after we're done with the show. But welcome, welcome, welcome. If you guys are new here, I've gotten a lot of new subscribers. Hello, my name is Bryce. I am the host and creator here of Esoteric Atlanta, and I'm really good at being petty. So that's what we do here on Esoteric Atlanta. We research all the weird and wacky stories of our collective world. We look through weird history. We look at conspiracies. We look at all sorts of stuff. We question the narrative, but we try to do it in a fair way. I always try to leave this channel with the idea, the Aristotle quote, that it's a sign of an intelligent mind when you can entertain an idea without accepting it. But in saying that, the DuPonts, the DuPonts, out of all the big families in the world, this family is so weird, and this family is so scandalous, and they have done some really heinous things since they landed in the United States, probably before, which we are going to get a little bit before as we talk about the French Revolution and old Pierre Samuel's weird predicament he found himself in that I'm still quite not understanding what actually happened there, but we're going to talk about it. And I just absolutely welcome you guys. If actually next week we're going to be getting into the Freeman family, and Lorraine is going to be helping me out because that's when we get into the Mormons. So you guys make sure you are subscribed to Lorraine's channel, the Sacred Secret Society, where she's dishing and giving you all the tea and all the pettiness about the evils of the Mormon church. So make sure that you are following Lorraine as well. So we're going to get into it, you guys. So if you're not aware, if you're new here, we are doing a deep dive. This DuPont story that we're covering today is part of a bigger story that I'm working on. And the bigger story that I'm working on is part of Fritz Springmeier's work from the 1990s on the 13 bloodline families. And as you guys know, there's a lot, especially with these older researchers, there's a lot I agree with, a lot I don't agree with. I think some information has changed perspective because the 90s were a long time ago. More stuff is now available. But if you are interested in a deeper dive, I'm going to show you where to find that because of the nature of what's going on with these families. You guys know what I mean. We can't have the bigger stories on YT. They have to be on Rumble. So usually what I do is I will do a short form, like a summary of what's going on YT, and then put the full episode over on Rumble where we're uncensored basically. So if you see here, here's the DuPont family over the side here, right here. And there are going to be some stories, some really crazy stories from the DuPont family that we're not going to cover today. But don't panic because those stories are covered over on Rumble from 7 days ago. One in particular being the most recent scandal that happened where one of the DuPonts was arrested and pled guilty. And I have to be careful for YT for being a PDF file, for doing things not so great with his young little girl. Hello, Angie. So yeah, so he pled guilty, this DuPont pled guilty of being a PDF file basically and hurting his itty bitty daughter. And this family, the DuPonts, are so rich that they have been able to buy their way out of trouble, which is that's not just a DuPont thing. That happens with a lot of wealthy people, right? And so this recent guy, which if you go to the other episode, you'll see a news clip from it. The court felt like he wouldn't be able to handle prison. I'm sorry, what? And so they just gave him like a slap on the wrist for literally admitting to being inappropriate for essaying his little girl, basically. And so this is kind of this family. They've always gotten away with stuff, which again is not exclusive to the DuPonts. This, we even see this in small towns with big families, but the DuPonts, man, again, I try to be fair. Exactly. We still don't have any arrests from the files. So it's like,
Yeah, what else is new, right? So with these families, I always try to be fair that even, with people who are born with these last names, doesn't necessarily mean that they are associated with the crimes or the alleged crimes of their family, right? We have to be very careful about that. But I'm going to tell you one thing: the DuPonts make it really hard. They just make it, if a DuPont is watching right now, if you don't want people to assume that you are Illumishmati, as we say on YT, or if you don't want people to assume that you're doing some wacky, weird, satanic shit, then stop doing things that make people assume that. Like it's kind of, at least some of these other families are a little bit more discreet. Like the DuPonts, they just wave their freak flag high, and it's wild. Like, I really don't like this family. They're becoming a family kind of like the Borgias, if you were here from our Borgia deep dives, where they're so wicked, you can't help but study them because it is just gobsmacking the predicaments that they have gotten themselves into and the stuff that has happened. And I mean, I would be embarrassed. Like, we're going to get into it, you guys. Obviously, we did a little bit of a background on the DuPonts last week, but we're going to review a little bit of that background because I'm proud of my ancestors. I know some of them probably weren't the great of people, but for the most part, I'm proud of my ancestors. If I were a DuPont, I would be mortified. And I'm going to tell you why. Like, we're going to see why. Like, I would be so embarrassed to be a DuPont. I mean, this is crazy, you guys. And there are about 2,500 DuPonts that are direct descendants of Pierre Samuel DuPont, which is where we're going to start our story today. So there's a lot of them. And I'm actually shocked by that number of it being about 2,500 because this family is known, like documented, which we're going to talk about, for marrying cousins and cousins marrying cousins and cousins marrying cousins and cousins marrying cousins, right? Like, the inbreeding here is off the charts with the DuPonts. And there is kind of this like DuPont nose that they talk about. You'll see it on John DuPont, which we're going to talk about today too. You can kind of see the profile. That's a very long, like, big nose that they have that many people believe is the product. That's one of the side effects of massive cousin marriages. And so there's other mental illnesses that have been passed down in the family, which we're going to speculate about John in a little bit. He is no longer living. But you guys, it is so juicy, and they're just so bad. And I was telling Jojo, I was texting with Jojo. I was saying, no money in the world could ever make me want to be, yeah, absolutely. No money. He does look a little odd in this picture. He is a little odd and a little off. We're going to talk about, he's no longer with us, but we're going to talk about his crimes. But I no amount of money in the world could make me want to be a DuPont. They are so disfigured. Like, there's certain things about cousin marriages that money can't fix. There are just certain things. And that's going to lead us to the biggest legend of all, you guys, with the DuPonts, which we're going to end there, which is this idea of Devil's Hill, which is an area on the Pennsylvania-Delaware state line. There's like a 12-mile radius area that's all owned by a bunch of these estates that are DuPont. And there's all these legends. If you're from this area, I would love to hear your knowledge about this Satanville, as they call it. And there's all these weird happenings. Many people believe that the DuPonts still do, and I'm on YouTube too, you guys. So for the Rumble people, I apologize, but I do have to watch my words here. But we'll just say there are legends in this area that the DuPonts still do their religious activities here, which we're going to end on that. And it goes even deeper, you guys, because if you remember back in 2004, for those of us that are of a certain age that remember it, that the movie by M. Night Shyamalan, The Village, that was filmed in the area of this like Satanville, and apparently it was kind of inspired. It was kind of inspired by these rumors about the DuPonts. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch rewatch The Village. But we're going to end on that because I think in order for us to really understand the local folklore around the DuPonts, we have to kind of understand. Oh, that's interesting, Angie. A friend of mine had his name legally changed because he was born a Rothschild. Yeah, I think that I feel sorry for people who are born into these families that really want nothing to do with their antics. And so I have empathy for that. The DuPonts though seem to own it. Like I have not found a DuPont yet that I'm like, that I feel a whole lot of empathy for. So anyway, now let's go back again to the beginning. So as we said in the last week's episode, this all starts with this guy named Pierre Samuel DuPont. Here he is, right here. That guy. Right. Obviously, this was before cousin marriages were big, but he's the one that's going to instigate the cousin marriages. So this is where usually I can, there's not many things in this world that I'm good at. Like I suck at math, but I'm pretty good at like understanding history and being able to step back and see the bigger picture. And I think I'm pretty good at dumbing it down and making it pretty like, political strife, pretty simple of what's like actually going on. But with Pierre Samuel, with this guy right here and his involvement in the French Revolution, I'm still a little bit confused about what actually happened here. So this guy, the patriarch, Pierre Samuel, he was born his mother's line. So it wasn't the DuPont family, his father's family. It was his mother's family that were like minor French nobility over. This is before they came to America. This is over in France. And there are legends that his mother also was a bit of like a spiritualist. Like and just because you can talk to spirits or you channel, obviously Todd and I do that all the time. It doesn't mean that you're evil. It just means that you have a sense of understanding the energetic world around you. Well, there are rumors, according to Fritz Springmeier, that this guy, Pierre Samuel, that he learned a lot of spiritualism and occult practices from his mother. Can we prove this? No. This was in the 18th century. Like we can only really speculate, right? Because this is like the inner workings of a family. So we don't know for sure. But nonetheless, Pierre Samuel, his mother passed away when he was 16, and he did not get along with his father. We do know that his father was a very brutal man. Again, this was the 18th century, so child rearing obviously was very different in the 1700s. So he ended up moving in with his mother's brother. So then he starts to really be shaped by this nobility, this family of his mother's line that's noble. Through his connections, through his uncle, remember, he doesn't have his mother's last name. He's got his father's last name, who's DuPont, right? He starts to meet a lot of wheelers and dealers in France at this point. And this is a very interesting time in our history in general, just around the world. Just to give you guys a little bit of a clue, the placement of the planets Pluto and Saturn, where they were placed at the end of the 1700s, is where they are placed now. So that gives you guys an idea of like the friction, the overhaul of a matrix system that was going on, the grabbing at certain ideas in order to film it, to perform a new government were happening. And if you guys have joined our Lou lives, Lou kind of gave us some insight into this time as well. We had the Haitian Revolution, then we had the American Revolution, which were successful. Then it bled over into the French Revolution. And at the time of the French Revolution, once Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were exnayed, it got kind of, the powers that be, or that want to be, the establishment of the world got involved to try to stop it. Because if the French Revolution had been successful, had totally been successful, the next to fall would have been the British monarchy, and we would have lost basically the quote unquote establishment. And so they had to stop that train. So here we have, during this time, we've got this idea of enlightenment thinkers. A lot of our founding fathers in America were enlightenment thinkers. They weren't really tied to an understanding of God through a religion. They were looking at more what we call spiritual religion, like kind of like how most of us are. Like, I believe in God, I have a huge relationship, but I don't follow dogma, right? That's kind of how they were. That's why our Constitution is set up the way it was. So we have this like very interesting mix of people going on during this time. And the French Revolution, for those, I mean, every revolution is bloody, but the French Revolution was like super bloody, right? It was crazy. They invented the guillotine. So Pierre Samuel, from what I've learned about him, when I'm trying to figure out about what actually happened, he at first was very much in support of the revolution, of getting rid of the Bourbon family, which was the monarchy of France at the time. Again, Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, who was a Habsburg. But then at some point he kind of changed and he was like defending the monarchy. But we do know he was a Jacobin. And the Jacobins are an interesting group. And this is going to get a little bit into like political theory too, which I find really fascinating, which we'll talk about more with the future generations of the DuPonts. So the Jacobins really kind of were the start of what we have today, is the European Union. So they maybe appear on the outside to be more Republican in their views for smaller government, but they're actually very communistic, right? So if we look at that political structure, where a Republican view, and I'm not talking about just like the Republican Party of the United States, this is actually a Republican across the world political aisle view, is smaller government, having smaller localized government. Whereas the opposite of that would be more of the Democratic view, which is more federal government, more, and that's kind of the big difference. And then you've got extremism, which is communism, right? And when we look at unifying Europe, we're looking at bringing in this idea of what? A one world government. Yeah. And I'm old enough to remember, actually, you guys, and I know a lot of people on the channel are around my age, maybe a little older, a little younger, but I was going through some of my old stuff at my mom's house a few like months back, and I actually found like old money from Europe that I still had. That might be a euro. Yeah. Oh no, that's Australian money. This is this is a franc. This is a franc before the euro came in. Yeah. I have a ton of money here. Let's see. This is a euro. That's a euro. This is a franc. That was French money. Here's a pound. England never took the euro though. Here's from Scotland. So I have a ton of money that I've had since, I was a kid. So when I was a kid going to Europe, again, Australian money here. There was no European Union, right? Here's a Spanish money, right? So this was before the European Union. And so countries had more of identities back then, right? They had their own money, they had their own culture, and then the European Union comes in, which makes it easier to travel, right? Once you're in Europe, you're in Europe, right? You're already in, you don't have to do passport checks anymore. And this I know has been a struggle for Europeans, and any of our Europeans can sound off in the comments if they want. A lot of people want to leave the European Union and go back to being sovereign nations. So basically what I'm saying is, even in my lifetime, so what we're seeing fulfilled now through the European Union was basically something that they were trying to do, this guy, Pierre Samuel, back in the late 1700s to unite Europe, right? And so it's very strange. Anyway, things get weird in the French Revolution. Like people start getting paranoid. And so all of a sudden people who were like super, into like overthrowing the monarchy are being looked at as traitors now. And everyone's getting their head chopped off. It doesn't matter who you are. I hate to laugh, but it's so uncomfortable. And I guess a lot of time has passed, so it doesn't really matter at this point, but everybody's got a date with the guillotine. That's where it gets really confusing with Pierre Samuel. So he actually ends up on death row in France. He is going to be guillotined. And this, to me, you guys, is like the most pivotal point in the DuPont family history. Because if this guy had been guillotined, if they had gone through with his death warrant, I don't know if we would have had the DuPont family that we have today. And Todd and I were talking about it this morning, and we're going to talk about the whole Teflon scandal. We're going to lead up to that happened. That's awful. And I hate to say that, like, I hate to be that person to be like, well, if this guy had actually been guillotined, then maybe we wouldn't have C8 poisoning as a people, right? But that's just speculation. But nonetheless, for some reason, this dude who's supposed to meet his maker gets off of debt, like gets out of it, right? And I still don't understand exactly how that happened. I'm still trying to figure out. The French Revolution gets real confusing. I believe intentionally, because I think it was hijacked. Like real confusing. But for some reason, this guy, the DuPonts always get themselves out of trouble, right? They always find a way to escape the penalties of their crimes. He is able to avoid the guillotine. And fair play to him after that happens. He's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my family to America. I probably would do the same thing. If I was lucky enough to avoid that, I would probably want to get out of the country that wanted to do that to me as soon as possible. So anyway, so they come to America. So he is Pierre Samuel. I keep wanting to say Samuel Pierre, but it's Pierre Samuel. He takes his children, two of sons. One is called Victor Marie, and the other one, the real famous one, E.I. DuPont. Ethelry, I think is how you say it. Ethelry Renee or Ethelry Renee, I believe. I'm not a French speaker. I've got a lot of French ancestors myself, but Lord have mercy, that French language is so complicated. So if I'm saying that name wrong, I totally apologize, but I believe it's Ethelry Renee DuPont is the second son. That we call him EI. He starts going by EI. So most people are going to know the name EI DuPont. That's Ethelry Renee DuPont. Okay. He is the second son of this man, of Pierre Samuel DuPont. So they end up in October of 1799 getting on a boat and sailing to the fledgling United States, this new country. They know people like Thomas Jefferson. They know people like Benjamin Franklin, because at this point, Pierre Samuel was already a bigwig in like the political atmosphere of Paris. And of course, France helped us in the American Revolution. So a lot of our founding fathers knew a lot of the big wheelers and dealers in France as well. So he already had connections, right, to Thomas Jefferson, to Benjamin Franklin. And so anyway, sorry guys, I'm going to try not to look at the comments until after I'm done, so I don't get distracted and get off course. I always love to see what you guys say, but sometimes it distracts me from where I am in the story. All right. So E.I. DuPont, Ethelray Renee, we're just going to call him E.I. He's 29 years old when they land in the United States. And funnily enough, this is kind of funny. They land in the United States on January 1 of 1800. Like, how ironic is that you land in your new home on the first day of the new year of the new century? So even to this day, the DuPonts consider January 1, our New Year's Day, to be their founding anniversary, because this is where the dynasty now starts to grow. What was minor nobility in France becomes a major enterprise very quickly in the United States. And there's a lot of nuance here, right? Like, if you guys missed it, last week I did a show, Catherine Edwards and I on her channel, did a show about these bloodline families that we're covering. And yes, they totally have religious ceremonies that we do, we'll say, like magic they do. But a lot of these families, what I'm learning through my research, is it's less about the magic and it's more that they are really shrewd business people. That's really what a lot of this comes down to, is them being very good at business and therefore being able to generate a lot of money. And money buys you power, money buys you influence. And so sometimes with these families, it's really not as spooky wooky or as mystical as we think it is. Sometimes with these powerful families, it's just Occam's razor. It's common sense. They're willing to do things in business that a lot of us are not willing to do. It's just simple as that. And that's true for E.I. DuPont. So again, when he lands in America with his father and his brother and his whole family, he's 29 years old. E.I. has been afforded back in France this really top-notch education with a lot of chemists. So now we are going to get a little spooky wooky though, because chemistry is alchemy. You know, our last Lou live, Lou was like, science is magic. Like, we have to understand that. So chemists are really good at alchemizing, at creating formulas. Yeah. And so EI was trained in chemistry, got to America, and thought that our pew pew powder, which is how I have to say it on YouTube, was low quality. So voila, he has a business idea, right? And so with this pew pew powder, he starts to create particular powder in the United States to help make our artillery some of the best in the world. In 1802, EI purchased 95 acres on the Brandywine River. So if you're from Delaware, I mean, most of Delaware, I mean, the DuPont's like employ 10% of the whole state. So most people in Delaware are probably way familiar with the DuPonts. That's kind of their state. They kind of developed their own little colony in Delaware. And so they create this pew pew powder. Now, Todd and I were talking about this as well, because it's complicated. It's absolutely complicated because every country needs a military. Every country needs a good defense. You want your country to have the best artillery, right? To defend you. Yeah. And somebody's got to make it. Somebody has to make it. Somebody's got to make the pew pew powder. But who wants to be that person? Like, I wouldn't want to do that, because even to this day, every 14 months, there's a huge explosion. People get, this is a dangerous industry. A lot of people, they have a list somewhere at my research of all the workers, the employees who have like literally blown up in working in their factories to create this pew pew powder. But nonetheless, so this is weird, right? This is where it's nuanced. Yeah, because we have to have defense. We need to have that as Americans. Thank God we have the best kind. But doing it is very dangerous. And so this is where they started to make, they already came to America with power, with money, but this is where they start to really become like one of the most powerful families, is first through this pew pew powder, right? And it comes majorly in with the Civil War, because EI was able to provide the Union troops with his product. So sales are through the roof, right? So they start to make a lot of money. All right, but let's back up a little bit. Before the Civil War even happened, this is where it gets super juicy. This is where we know, like in a lot of situations, we know with monarchy, we know that they absolutely married each other. We know that, that's documented. But there are a lot of families where we can speculate sometimes, but we don't know for sure. With the DuPonts, we have literal documented evidence that they pursued inbreeding. In 1810, Pierre Samuel, this guy, was 69 years old. He had survived the French Revolution. His sons were building a colony in Delaware. And in the last decade of his life, he wrote a series of letters to his sons and their wives. Now, some researchers call these letters, y'all, you think your family's got problems? You ain't seen nothing. Like, just thank God that you aren't a DuPont, right? Like, thank God. He wrote a series of letters to his sons, and I'm embarrassed. Like, this is horrifying. Like, this is so embarrassing. Basically, it was almost like a family contract. Yeah. That he wanted the next generation to be able to preserve the family power and wealth by the cousins marrying each other. Okay, so this is literally a quote, as I said in the opening. They should be sure of honesty of soul and purity of blood. What? I know, exactly. Now, when I was looking at this, so this is the 19th century. And we do know now that we absolutely know about, we have way better understanding about genetics, how genetics work now. We have laws in most states in the United States that prohibit people from marrying. Like, I think in Georgia, it's like your fifth, I think you're okay to marry, like, it's legally okay to marry like your fifth cousin. I think that's the state. Different states have different laws around it. And let me explain that a little bit, because I had to really dig into this to like figure out like what the hell is going on with these DuPonts. So in the United States, we have federal law and then we have state law. In most cases, when most people get married in the United States, they're not marrying their cousins. And so if you get married in Alabama, that marriage is recognized in all 50 states, right? Even though you get married in Alabama, it's recognized federally too. However, when it comes to inter-family marriage, that's not the same thing because states have different laws regarding how closely they'll allow you to be genetically to your spouse. So again, in Georgia, I believe you have to be like fifth cousins, like even fourth cousins, that's illegal in Georgia, right? So that's when it gets a little weird, right? With the whole cousins, and I'm bringing this up for a specific reason, which we'll talk about a little later on. Why this is important to recognize, especially for the people outside of the United States and even for people in the United States, because let's just face it, you guys, let's face it. Most of us don't want to marry our cousins. So this is not even a part of it's not even in our forethought of, if I can trace back, like if I know we share a common ancestor, no, we're not doing this, like it's weird. It's just weird. So anyway, in the 1800s, though, we do have royalty is still intermarrying with cousins, all that kind of stuff. But in my research, by the 1800s, we see references to it in Gone with the Wind, like Scarlett talks about her cousin Ashley, like all that kind of stuff. But really, by the 1800s, most people were kind of coming to the conclusion that maybe that wasn't a good idea to marry cousins. All right. So this isn't even, some people can say that, oh, it was just the time, they didn't know. But no, that's not true because people were starting to really move away from this idea. It was not as common as it maybe had once been by the 1800s. And I just want to be like so for real with you guys right now, because this is why the DuPonts have so many problems, like health-wise and physically. One of my students is a geneticist, and I love talking to her about her work. Your first cousins are so genetically connected to you that sometimes it comes up genetically as siblings. Sometimes your cousin can register through DNA as your sibling, even though they're not. That's how close your first cousins are to your DNA. Your parents are siblings. Your parents are siblings. You have the same grandparents, right? Through one side of your family, you share grandparents. And I know this is true because years ago, stupidly, don't do this. This was years ago. I did 23andMe. And one of my male cousins, it popped up. They send you emails and they're like, we found, family, and they'll tell you, but sometimes they have a question. So you're not quite sure where to place this person. And this email popped up and it was my one of my male cousins, on my mom's side. And they said, the email was like, you have a high DNA match with this person. Is this your cousin or is this your half sibling? That's how high our DNA actually matched this one particular cousin, that even 23andMe was like, we don't know if this is a cousin or a half sibling. And I had to say, oh, that's my cousin. And the funny thing is, this particular cousin and I look identical. Like his sister and my sister, we look more alike than we do to our own siblings. It's kind of a joke how much we look alike. So it was interesting that even 23andMe picked up on like, yeah, there's a reason you guys look so much alike. You share a lot of you share a lot of DNA, especially through mitochondrial DNA, which with the next generation. So with the next generation, his son, Victor Marie. So we've got two big lines from Victor Marie and E.I. DuPont. So E.I. DuPont, this guy is the one who started the company, but he partnered with his brother. So they're in a family business together. Well, they have two children. EI has a daughter named Sophie Madeline, this lady. And then Victor Marie has Samuel Francis. Okay. So they're over the next few decades. We're not going to talk about every cousin that got married, but there are seven documented cousin marriages across 3 generations. Seven across 3. Y'all, that is not okay. But I wanted to focus on Sophia Madeline and Samuel Francis. So they're first cousins. Their fathers, again, Sophia, her father is EI. Her father is the chemist. Her uncle is Victor Marie. Her grandfather is Pierre Samuel. So is her cousin husband. His grandfather is also Pierre Samuel. So they're the first cousin marriages after this family decree and contract is created. And this is a very interesting marriage. And uh, Fritz Springmeier, over on the long form, we talk about this marriage a little bit. Now, Fritz Springmeier has a lot of claims in his research about her in particular. That's why I pulled her picture. I have not been able to find the evidence to basically say Fritz Springmeier's research is correct. That doesn't mean the evidence doesn't exist. It could have been scrubbed. So let's back. What evidence am I talking about? This girl was weird. This girl was freaky deaky. Like, she was weird. So she married her. They didn't have any children. I think that's a good thing that they never had children. But Samuel Francis was big in the United States Navy. They married in 1833. If you live in Washington, D.C., or go to Washington, D.C., DuPont Circle is named after Samuel Francis, her husband cousin, right? Now, it's so funny because in a lot of the research, like, they didn't spend a lot of time together, Sophie and her husband cousin, which kind of clocks. Because I'm like, well, yeah, they're cousins, right? Like, they're cousins. But they had a pretty decent, like, in their correspondence through letters, they were really nice to each other and very loving and supportive of each other. And I'm just like, yeah, no, that's cousins. Like, some of my cousins I only see like at Christmas or Thanksgiving, but I keep up with them. Like, I know where they are, and we send each other texts, and we're supportive of each other, but we're not in love with each other because we're not freaks. We're cousins. That's gross. That's so gross. That is so gross. All right. Now, the good news, though, this is where there might be some loopholes, even though it's still gross. Like, don't marry your cousin. They're cousins through their fathers. Their fathers are brothers. We know with genetics that when mothers are sisters and your children, like me and my cousin that have a lot of DNA sharing, our mothers are sisters. Women carry more, like when you're born, you carry more, the more potent DNA comes from your mom's side. Like, your athletic ability comes from your mom's side. They're even learning now that women actually are the carriers of the bloodline. And that might be why we take our dad's last names, because we don't get a whole lot from our fathers. We get a lot from our mom. So I would say, if you're going to have to marry your cousin, it might as well be your cousin who's the child of your dad's brother. Like, in all honesty, it's still screwed up. Like, don't do it. You're still very closely related, but there's more potency with the mitochondrial DNA. And so anyway, that's just a side note. This is how I went into this research, guys, because this is so creepy. It's so cringe. So to the researchers that say, well, they had a good relationship. They were cousins. Of course they did. I have a good relationship with my cousins. I don't like long to be with them, like, but I see them at the week or at holidays, and we have fun together, and I'll shoot them a text on their birthday and like chat with them every now and again. If they need something, I will give them the shirt off my back. They're my cousins, So what we see in the letter correspondence between Sophie and her husband cousin, I think is a normal cousin relationship. It's not a love relationship, but nonetheless, they're married to try to preserve the bloodline, to preserve the purity of blood and the honesty of soul, all that nonsense. But they never had kids. Now, again, he was in the Navy, so he was away anyway. I'm not saying maybe she had, her boyfriends. I don't know. So long ago. But where it's interesting, and this is where Fritz Springmeier really hones in on her specifically for clues as to what was happening in this family. She was an incredible artist, and you can find a lot of her artwork all over the internet. A lot of the museums in Wilmington, in Delaware, and have a lot of her mother. She's named after her mother, who's also Sophie Madeline. They were both very good artists. So was her sister. And I can't take that from them. No matter how despicable they are as humans, she was a very gifted artist. Well, the funny thing is Fritz Springmeier alludes to these drawings that she did that are very indicative of SRA. Again, I have to watch my words on YouTube, but of ritualistic, like there's one painting that she allegedly did of Satan, and allegedly there's a letter between her and another cousin, a female cousin, about how people think she's drawn one thing, but Tee hee hee, she's actually drawn something else. And in the files I have that were Fritz Springmeier's, he alludes to having a copy of that painting in the files, but it's not there. Like I don't have it. It's not there. So I have been scouring. We have been working on the DuPonts for 2 weeks now. Every day I scour and I try to type in different keywords, different key phrases to see if I can find this particular painting that Fritz Springmeier is talking about. I want to see it for myself. I've looked under DuckDuckGo. I've used different search engines. I cannot find it. And again, in his files, I'm going to reiterate, he does say see below, see attachment below. There's no attachment. It's gone. So, I don't want to state anything as fact when it is just speculation. But the fact, and I would like to see it for myself. I mean, she could have just been like an Edgar Allan Poe type chick and was very interested in the macabre. I don't know. A lot of us are kind of interested in the macabre. Doesn't mean that we're Satanists, right? Yeah, absolutely. A lot has been. And that's a good question, Lorraine. I didn't even think to check the DOJ, but yeah, if you guys go back and listen to the 2-hour episode on the DuPonts on Rumble, we talk about this picture. And I don't know where it is, but if anybody finds it, let me know. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it for myself. There is one thing I will say about, and I appreciate Fritz Springmeier so much. I actually have been trying to get in touch with him because he is still alive. Same as I appreciate Sergei Monas so much. And I'm so glad that I've had the honor of being able to pull their work back up and introduce their work to a new audience of people. However, I think the thing that happens sometimes when people devote their whole life to studying these families is I think massive paranoia starts to happen. And I'm not saying that's not justified. Do I think the DuPonts are an Illuma-Schmati family? Yeah, I do. But I think sometimes people will take one little thing and make it bigger than it is because they're so used to seeing the atrocity, the things they're so used to seeing these violent things these families have done in the past. And so every little thing is a clue where it might not be, right? We don't know for sure. We don't know for absolute sure. And so I just want to be very clear. We try to be very, very, I tried the Wayback Machine. I've tried it. I can't find it. It's gone. And that's what makes me, here's the thing. That's what's so bad. If they would just let it be and leave it up on the internet, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the fact that it's gone makes me even more speculative of what that picture looks like, so I just, anyway, so there's a lot of speculations. That's kind of the first clue that we see, or that Fritz Springmeier sees, besides Pierre Samuel's mother allegedly being a spiritualist, which again, that's all speculation too. But this is the first big clue that Fritz Springmeier had to say that the girl, I'd love to. He has paid a heavy price for Fritz Springmeier. I've done a lot of research into him to see who it is, whose work I'm actually looking at. They've gone after him. They've played him really dirty. And even I will say one thing I love about Fritz Springmeier, which you guys are going to see more next week too, in next week's family. Fritz Springmeier is a lot like I am when it comes to casting judgment. He says repeatedly in his files that we cannot tar everyone with the same feather. Just because somebody carries a last name doesn't mean anything. Just because somebody's born to wealthy parents doesn't mean anything. We have to have actual proof before we start vigilante violencing our way through this. And I agree with him. I think that's where we get, we have to make sure as we start to expose this nonsense that we're not becoming the people we hate, that we're not becoming more violent than they are. Right? We have to be fair, law and order. We need evidence. If we don't have evidence, we don't have evidence. That's one thing I do love about the American judicial system is it has to be without a shadow of a doubt that the person, if you have a little bit of a doubt, you have to find the person innocent. And I agree with that because I think sometimes our egos get the best of us. And sometimes I think we want to blame all of our shortcomings on these establishment families. And yes, they've done a lot of bad stuff to us. But as I've said, my objective opinion, my subjective opinion, looking at these families, it's not the rituals that are making them powerful. It's the fact that they're good at business. It's as simple as that, right? And we can't fault somebody for being good at business. That's totally different than committing crimes against children or all that kind of stuff. But anyway, long story short, this chick right here, she is the first pseudo evidence that we see that there's something else going on with this family besides just being good at business. Because she's got some drawings and she's got some hinting and letters that people think one drawing is one thing, but it's actually of Satan. And so anyway, but as I said, her and Samuel Francis, they did not have children. Okay. So as we look at the DuPont family line, and I'm actually going to, you guys, let me take her off for a second. Let me make sure there's nothing else here that that I need to pull up before we get to this. So what I did, I actually had, so I could show you guys everything, was that I had ChatGPT actually take all of my research and create a family line for you guys to see. So we can look at it together so you can kind of see how it trickles down to us now, which again is going to bring us to like the Teflon scandal, the John DuPont scandal, or unaliving of the Olympiad, and of course, Satanville. Okay, so let's look at, let me pull this up for you guys so you can kind of see it for yourself. I also wanted to do it this way as well because, let me see here, because there are some words, as you guys know, there are some words that I cannot say on the YT. And so if you're able to look at your screen, now some of you guys might be able to infer what I'm saying as I dance around the word I can't say, but you might be able to see it on the screen. So I wanted to give you the direct line to John DuPont first, because this is the first big story we're going to cover. So we have Pierre Samuel DuPont. He lived from 1739 to 1817. He was the French economist, political philosopher, and statesman. He advised King Louis XVI, fled the French Revolution, father of the American DuPont dynasty. Then we have Ethelred Irene E.I. DuPont, 1771 to 1834. He was the son of Pierre Samuel, founded the E.I. DuPont and Company in 1802, the Pew Pew Powder Company, established the Pew Pew Powder Mills on the Brandywine River, and built the family's American fortune. Then we have his son, Henry DuPont. So Henry DuPont, one of his sons, was born in 1812 and lived to 1889. He was the grandson of Pierre Samuel. He was a Civil War officer for the Union Army. He was the president of the DuPont Company. He expanded the family's wealth and influence. Then his son is William DuPont. He was born in 1855 and lived to 1928. He was an industrialist, president of the Hercules Powder Company, horse breeder, and continued expanding the family's business interest. His son was William DuPont Jr., 1896 to 1965. He was a banker, a thoroughbred horse breeder, designed and owned racetracks, built Bellevue Hall and Fair Hill into world-famous estates, and then married Jean Lister Austin, which we're going to talk about their marriage. And then he had his youngest son is John Ethelred DuPont, 1938 to 2010, marine biologist, basically most famous for being the unaliver of Dave Schultz, who was an Olympic wrestler. So I want to talk a little bit before we get into Teflon about John DuPont. Okay, does anybody remember like this guy? This case happened in 1996 when he unalived a very famous American wrestler named Dave Schultz. Now, the funny thing is, you guys, they've actually made a movie called Foxcatcher. Foxcatcher was the name of the estate that this dude lived on. It was part of the DuPont and part of his, we're going to get into his mother, her family's estate too. His parents were not cousins. Okay. But that doesn't really matter because I think there was already so much inbreeding that I think it really affected him biologically, physiologically. Now, when we talk about the Satanville that's coming up at the end of the show, It's important to understand where Foxcatcher Estate is located because it's like 12 miles from the area where allegedly all this cult activity has been taking place. No, now the Lester Estate, or Foxcatcher Estate as it was called, by 1996, when this unaliving happened, it's the single biggest piece of private land in the United States, 800 acres. Now, what's so funny about the DuPont family, you guys, is, again, out of all of the families that we're going through in this series, they literally stand out the most. Like, they do this to themselves. They're not discreet. They're so weird. Like, if you don't want people to think that you're a PDF satanic practitioner, don't act like one. Stop doing this weird shit that you guys do. It reminds me, even though they would be considered like old money by this point in the United States, a lot of their antics is very new money to me. You know, like if you've read the Great Gatsby talks about this. I grew up with a lot of old money people. Old money shops at Target. New money shops at Gucci. Old money drives a beat up car. New money drives a Lexus. Old money doesn't need you to see how flashy it is. The name does that alone. But they're so flashy and they're so arrogant. And the thing about the DuPonts, and this goes into the story of John, and I think it also, in my speculation and opinion, plays into the Satanville issue as well. They gave so much to the police force that the police kind of did what they wanted them to do. They could kind of buy their way out of problems, which did not work out really well for John, but we're gonna talk about that. I also want to remind you guys, we talked a little bit about the Jacobins with Pierre Samuel. The DuPont family is notorious one of the bigger Republican families here in the United States. And as I said, and Fritz Springmeier does speak about this in his notes as well, we have a term called rhinos. Rhino is Republican in name only. That's the DuPonts. Because when we're looking at smaller government, which is the basis, regardless of what your political affiliation is, we're not doing this to pick a side. We're just looking at it as what it is on paper. Like, what is a Republican? A Republican is somebody who typically wants smaller government, more states' right, more localized government. Democrats typically want more federal government. Okay, so that's why Democrats lead more towards things like communism, because that's more overstepping of a bigger government. So if you're a Republican, you are going to basically not want things like monopolies, right? You want, it's really important. I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day. Monopolies are terrible. They're terrible. Like when you need, that's the whole idea. Most Republicans are capitalists because it brings on like a free enterprise for people to compete, you know, to have to, you know, work hard to make sure that your business, your company is the more favorable one. You know, like in Georgia, we have Georgia Power. That's like our only power company. And it's terrible because when the power goes out, we have one company. We can't switch to another company. So it makes us as the consumers powerless, right? When we have capitalism and free enterprise and multiple businesses with the same product, that makes the consumer powerful, the people powerful. So the DuPonts are pledging to be these big Republicans, but their actions really say they're not, that they're communist, because they try to monopolize everything. Create monopolies. They've actually had some class action lawsuits against them because of their greed and their need to monopolize everything. I hope that makes sense. So when we look at John DuPont, now I'm going to go back over. I organized this again. I had put all my stuff in. Let me see if I can find the right page before I pull it up, where I wanted to kind of talk more about him. But again, there's a lot of things that I cannot say on YT. So I'm going to pull it up. I had ChatGPT organize my research so that you guys could see it on the screen. Again, if you're listening while you're working or driving, you'll probably be able to infer what I'm saying as I dance around certain words. So let's go ahead and talk about this dude, because this dude is fascinating. I think I started saying, I'm going to go ahead and tell you again, there are two big movies recent movies about oh, I will, Lorraine, thanks. After this I'm going to actually play an ad, because then I got to clear everything and get ready for the Satanville section. So I got so much stuff. StreamYard was like, hold on, girl, you got to do this in sections. So absolutely. But thanks for reminding me. Speaking of capitalism. So anyway, you guys, but let's just look at this together, because this guy is so fascinating. He is like a spoiled brat to the extreme, but nonetheless, there are two current movies out right now about the DuPont scandals. One, I've watched both of them now and researching this case. One is called Foxcatcher, and it is about this case that we're about to talk about, this scandal with John DuPont. And honestly, you guys, Steve Carell plays John DuPont, and it gives me chills. Like, he looks just like him. He talks like him. It is wild. Now, here's the funny thing too. Mark Ruffalo, you guys know who Mark Ruffalo is? That little bitch. Like, I cannot stand that man. Like, as far as like a human being, I cannot stand Mark Ruffalo. He is like a virtue signaling 16-year-old. Like, he's so obnoxious as a human being. However, two things can be true, right? He's a really good actor. And I've always enjoyed when I see he's in a movie, I'm always like, oh, he's a good actor. But him as a person, like, I don't want to follow him on social media. Mark Ruffalo has been in two whole DuPont scandal movies, two of them. He was in Foxcatcher. He played David Schultz, the man who got unalived. And then he's in a movie called Dark Waters, which is about the whole Teflon C8 thing, which made me so mad last night. Like, I was watching more about that. I mean, it's awful. That's really bad. So Mark Ruffalo has literally done two DuPont scandal movies. So anyway, if you want to watch any movies about this, Foxcatcher is about this case. Dark Waters is a movie about the C8 Teflon scandal, which we're going to talk about after we get through John. Okay. So let's look at this together. John DuPont remains one of the most fascinating and tragic figures in modern American crimes. He was simultaneously a millionaire heir, scientist, museum founder, philanthropist, Olympic benefactor, obsessive collector, published ornithologist, and eventually a convicted unaliver. What makes his story so compelling is that for much of his life, he was regarded as an eccentric genius rather than a dangerous man. His wealth allowed him to build an entirely private world where few people challenged him, even as his behavior became increasingly bizarre. Okay, so I want to say too, yeah, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. Now, there is a psychiatrist here on YouTube, and I can't remember his name, but he's got a huge channel. I watched him talk about this guy, and he brought up stuff about this guy's past that I had not found. That was very interesting. And I thought about playing part of his video on my channel, but the problem is when you do that, even though it's fair use because we're using it to give commentary, people will try to strike your channel. And right now I'm so shadow banned that I don't want to even get into that. So once we get off, if you guys are interested, I'll put that video, I'll tag it down below so you can listen to a psychiatrist talk about this. Now, this psychiatrist is very mainstream, and a lot of people, like in our world, view John DuPont's schizophrenia diagnosis, he was diagnosed as a schizophrenic, as signs of inbreeding. Now, a lot of psychiatrists say, no, not necessarily. Schizophrenia can happen regardless. And I agree with that. I do agree with that. But we do know that with a lot of chromosomal issues, which a lot of chromosomal deletion issues do come from inbreeding, schizophrenia is a side effect. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk a lot about John's mom and his relationship with his mom. His parents were not cousins. They were both independently wealthy. They both came from very huge dynasty families. But it doesn't, I don't think it really matters by the time we get to John. I think the DuPont line had been so corrupted through genetics that it was going to play itself out in one way or another. Like, again, the nose, we see that with John DuPont, the way their noses are, and you can kind of look it up. It's not just a big nose. It's a specific way their nose is done. That's that geneticist has said is a sign of inbreeding, kind of like the Habsburg chin. So anyway, so let's go get back into it. John DuPont was born on November 22nd, 1938 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He wasn't really born rich. He was born into what many historians describe as American aristocracy. The DuPont family is Fair Hill on the old Fox Hunter estate. I don't know. Well, it's Foxcatcher is the estate. That's a different estate. So that's a different case. The Fox Hunter estate with the serial unaliver, and that's a wild case too. Different. This is Foxcatcher. It's in Philadelphia, or excuse me, Pennsylvania. It's outside of Philadelphia. But yeah, I think you're thinking about the Netflix series. That's a wild one too that we can cover, but it's a different family. I think different estate. Let's see. So the DuPont family had accumulated enormous wealth through the pew powder business founded by their ancestors, Pierre Samuel DuPont. And after immigrating from France following the French Revolution over nearly 2 centuries, the family expanded into chemicals, banking, politics, horse riding, philanthropy, and scientific research, becoming one of America's most influential dynasties. By the time John was born, the family fortune stretched into the hundreds of millions of dollars worth billions today. So what I know from my statistics of what I've researched, and again, this is speculation too, because I don't know if we have all the numbers, is that, which we are going to talk about more about the family councils when we get to the Teflon controversy. There are roughly 2,500 DuPonts today. Not all of them have the last name DuPont because some are born of daughters. But of these 2,500 people, they all get a piece of the pie. So the DuPont estate is worth about $14.1 billion. And so every one of those 2,500 collects from that. So that means that everyone is getting a couple hundred million, right? And we know that John DuPont was worth about 200 million when he was arrested after he unalived. All right, so let's talk about, again, his parents were William DuPont Jr., who was a horse breeder, a polo enthusiast, a socialite, a millionaire. His mother was Jean Lister Austin DuPont, an extremely wealthy heiress in her own right. They divorced when John was only 2 years old. The divorce shaped nearly every aspect of his emotional life. I want to talk about this a little bit because, again, it's not just one thing, I think, that made him the way he is. Well, then you can do the math for me. I just said I'm not good at math, right? But I'm a really good researcher. So you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, then you do it for me. I'm doing it off the top of my head. But you're welcome for me doing all this research for you, which is why you're here. So, well, you don't have to be a bully about it. You don't have to be a bully. And that's, I'm not going to deal with bullying at all. Not going to deal with bullying. So anyway, back to the story, guys. So John was the 4th child born of these 2 people. This is why I love psychology, because it's not ever just one thing, right? It's like a bunch of things going on at the same time, right? Bunch of things. So he was a lot younger than his siblings. And from what it seems to me, my friends, is that this is just me speculating from what I read. I don't know if this is true or not. This is me speculating. I think John was like a child to kind of try to fix their marriage. Does that make sense? Like, I think that they had him, or she got pregnant to try to keep her husband. And it didn't work. So it's a lot of pressure to put on a child, right? That's kind of what, because he was very much younger than his siblings. Once their parents divorced when he was 2, and he was kind of stuck with his mother. So John grew up on Lister Hall Farm, an enormous estate outside Philadelphia. Imagine growing up on hundreds of acres with servants, horse barns, private lakes, formal gardens, and multiple mansions. Yet despite all the luxury, numerous biographies described him as profoundly lonely. After his parents' divorce, he was largely raised by his mother and household staff rather than close-knit family environment. Yeah, he really didn't have, in the movie, they talk about how he has to make appointments to see his dad, and that could have been dramatized for the movie, but I believe it. I think that was his relationship with his father. Former acquaintances said he desperately wanted friends, but had difficulty relating to other children. One story was that has circulated for years, is that his mother, this came up a lot in my research, is that his mother allegedly paid neighborhood children to spend time with him, while often repeated. This antidote has not been firmly documented, so it should be presented as an oft-told story. It came out in a lot of research, though, you guys, that his mother would pay people to play with him, like pay the chauffeur's kids to be his friend, right? This came out a lot. One misconception is that John DuPont was unintelligent. Quite the opposite. He possessed a remarkably curious mind. He studied a lot of stuff in science. He eventually earned a degree in marine biology at the University of Miami. Most people don't realize that John DuPont had a legitimate scientific reputation. He participated in research expeditions basically throughout the world. Anyway, he got really into birds. So he was very smart. He also had a bit of an obsessive compulsive disorder. Like he would get really obsessed with things, which we see that with wrestling to the point where it goes overboard. So one of his proudest accomplishments was founding the Delaware Museum of Natural History. Unlike many wealthy donors, he wasn't simply writing checks. He personally became involved in collecting specimens, research, exhibitions, museum leadership. For years, he genuinely contributed to science. Many science actually respected him. Again, his collections were very obsessive. I mean, like when you look at the documentaries or read all the articles on him, it's wild. He was so obsessive. It's obviously a sign of a mental disorder, how obsessive he got. He was fascinated with the military. He knew a lot about American history and American military, Olympic dreams. Despite his wealth, John wanted something money couldn't easily buy: respect. He envied elite athletes. He trained obsessively in different sports. He wanted to make the 1968 U.S. Olympic team. He failed. This appears to have been one of his greatest disappointments in life. Anyway, so friends noticed something reoccurring whenever John entered a field. He didn't simply want to participate. He wanted to become the most important person in it, right? So this is a personality trait we're seeing. Now, marriage. So John married only once in 1983. He married occupational therapist Gail Wink. The marriage lasted only a few months. She later alleged that he threatened her with a pew-pew and attempted to push her into a fireplace during the breakdown of the relationship. They divorced in 1987 and she was excluded from his will. Now, there's more to this story with his ex-wife. I'm just going to let you guys know that. And the therapist I watched went into it. Like, it was horrific, the things that he, like, abuse to the extreme. But this is the thing about this guy and this family in general. Like, they are not held accountable. They are not held accountable for things they do. The shit he did to that woman, if it had been a Joe Schmo, if it had been any one of you guys in the audience, you would have been arrested. You would have been arrested, even back in the 80s. But because the family is so powerful, put so much money into public funding, has such a good relationship with the police, actually worked with the 3-letter agency on different mind operations, we'll say, because I'm on you guys know there's actual evidence of the DuPont family working with the 3-letter agency on how to work the mind, we'll say, the MK stuff. Okay, so there's more. I'm telling you, there's more to this first wife. It's diabolical. Now, he also lost his testicles at a horseback riding accident when he was younger, and part of me is like, I don't know, I'm not a man, but would like that affect you psychologically as a man if that accident happened? So he's never going to have, he was young, so he's not going to have children, right? But even your manhood, I don't know. I that has been mentioned in a lot of research and in passing, but I'm like, that might affect somebody psychologically too. So discovering wrestling around the 1980s, John became fascinated with amateur wrestling. Unlike professional wrestling, Olympic wrestling struggled financially. Many world-class athletes lived modestly. John saw an opportunity he could become their benefactor. Now, before that, you guys, he had tried to take part in a wrestling facility that he didn't own. And he did get kicked out for bad behavior. He did get kicked out for being abusive. So the fact that he cannot function when he is not in control because his behavior is so bad tells you mental illness, spoiled, narcissistic. His family just bought his way through life. Okay. So after that happened, he decided to take the estate that he still lived on with his mother to create, which was called Foxcatcher because of horse riding. to create his own like Olympic little village. So what he did is he found these Dave Schultz and Mark, his brother, again, Mark Ruffalo plays Dave Schultz, who was an Olympic gold medalist. And this is during the Cold War. Okay. So it gets into like the Russians, like the Americans could never beat the Russians, but the American Wrestling Association did not have money. And so a lot of Russian wrestlers were able to wrestle full time, where the American wrestlers could not wrestle full time because they weren't really paid. And so John duPont not only opened up a facility on his massive 800-acre estate, but he also pumped money into the sport in order to make it a viable sport, which of course the American Wrestling Association took, because that means that we can beat the Russians now. We have the backing to beat the Russians. Okay. So he creates this facility. He lives at home with his mother on this huge estate, and he creates this facility, builds a wrestling gym, everything. And he has all these houses on the estate. So not only is he now paying these guys, giving them a living salary, a chance to do their dream job, but he's giving their families houses on his estate. So the families are sitting pretty, right? Who doesn't want to take somebody up on that offer? And this is where a lot of speculation is going on, because a lot of these people got really close to John. They lived with him. They celebrated holidays with him. They considered him not only their boss, but their friend. And they started noticing these behavior problems and these paranoia problems coming in. But their livelihood depends on him, right? This is a problem. And I think this is a problem for us today too. It's hard. And I can't fault them for that. Like if you've got children to support, that's a really hard predicament to be in. But anyway, his mother died in 1988. He renamed the family estate Foxcatcher Farms. He spent millions creating one of the world's premier wrestling training centers. Features included Olympic quality wrestling rooms, weight facilities, athlete housing, dining halls, training fields. Athletes came from around the world. Many considered it the best wrestling facility on earth. He wanted to be called coach, despite never becoming an elite wrestler himself. John insisted on coaching Olympians. Some athletes tolerated, others quietly mocked it because he paid the bills. So John increasingly insisted upon unusual honors. One story supported by multiple accounts is that he thought he was the Dalai Lama. He started to have like delusions where he thought he had like diplomatic immunity because he was the Dalai Lama. There was one Bulgarian wrestler that he became obsessed with that he brought over from Bulgaria. And he started claiming that the reason why he felt so close to this particular Bulgarian wrestler was because his family was Bulgarian. And everyone's like, bro, you're a duPont. Everybody knows, like everyone knows your ass is from France. You are not Bulgarian. You are French. Like you cannot, like it got delusional. He also portrayed himself as a military strategist, intelligence expert, security specialist, coach, and a patriot. His self-image became increasingly detached from reality. His relationship with athletes, many wrestlers generally appreciated him. He paid salaries, bought homes, funded Olympic dreams, covered medical expenses, financed international travel. Some even sent him Father's Day cards because of the support he provided. But many also felt they had to indulge his eccentricities because he controlled their livelihood. All right, after his mother's death in 1988, people noticed dramatic changes. He became suspicious, isolated, paranoid, unpredictable. The estate became increasingly locked down. So some of his bizarre beliefs, which I really want to talk about, he believed the trees were moving. He sometimes claimed the trees were being repositioned to spy on him. His mansion contained ghosts. He spoke with spirits inside the walls, hidden tunnels that existed beneath Foxcatcher estates. He believed underground passageways were being used against him. All right, I want you to remember this. Remember this right here when we get into the Satanville conversation. That the mafia was after him, that people were hiding in the walls, telephones were bugged. He feared surveillance. He thought that deers were fake and they were spying on him. Strange estate behavior, including driving in armored vehicles, carrying pubes everywhere, making random security inspections, conducting searches of the property, and insisting invisible enemies surrounded him. Okay, so They also talk about his rug use, which I have to say it that way, the rug. The rug use that he was doing was Coca-Cola, we'll say Coca-Cola for YT purposes. Now, I don't think that the Coca-Cola that he had anything to do with his mental state. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think people like to blame that on it, but I think we're looking at a deeper issue. I really don't think that Coca-Cola had anything to do with what happened at all. Coca-Cola is just as common in the world as wacky tobacco. Again, I have to be careful. The devil's lettuce. I have to be careful because of YT. It's really common. And you don't see people losing their marbles over Coca-Cola. Like the high only lasts 30 minutes, right? And so I think this behavior problem is signs of his schizophrenia. And possibly where my speculation is, was he SRA'd? Was he the product of rituals done by his family and that caused his mind to break as well? I don't know. Is a combination of everything? Cousin marriages, being untouchable because of your wealth, so having a little bit of narcissism, and also because you are a victim. It's crazy because and this is where I struggle, you guys. Like I had someone like go off on me in the John Todd episode we did. Two things can be true, my friends. Like there's no way that John Todd, if you missed that episode, guys, he allegedly was a Collins whistleblower. They're like, there's no way that John Todd could literally be who he claimed he was because he was arrested for raping a young girl. What? Two things can be true. One has nothing to do with the other. You can be guilty of raping a young girl and also have grown up, abused yourself. And that's the same thing I see with John DuPont. That's where my speculation lies. John DuPont absolutely deserved to be in prison. He unalived someone. But did it culminate to that? Did it come to that because of his victimhood? Two things can be true. That's my thought. Now, so if that person is watching, like if you think that one excludes the other, then you obviously just do not understand human beings. And in fact, like even when with like John Todd's case, the fact that he was found guilty of raping a young girl actually, in my opinion, is more proof. Yeah, exactly. That there was some trauma done to him as a child. And that's the same thing with John DuPont. I think what happened to him, yes, people can develop schizophrenia without having any of that in their past. But the situation with the DuPonts, especially the underground tunnels and what we're going to talk about with Satanville, I think he lost his mind because his mind was broken a long time ago. And he was so much younger than his siblings that I think a lot of it was put on him. His mother was a nightmare, an absolute... Exactly. And yes, Dragonfly contributed more than, yeah, exactly. And people can unalive other people without having any abuse in their past too. But you have to look at the bigger picture here of what we're seeing. Same with John Todd. Like I said in that video that I put out, like as far as his criminal case of being accused of SA, I wasn't in the jury. I wasn't in the court. I can't really speak on that, but I'm looking at more, was he telling the truth about his childhood? And I think nowadays we understand so much more about this type of disassociation of mind, of breaking these minds, that we see it backfire a lot. And I think that's what happened with John DuPont. There's a side of me that has a lot of empathy for them, even though they did terrible things. So during his trial, psychiatrists diagnosed him with severe mental illness. The testimony described paranoid delusions and other psychotic symptoms. The jury ultimately concluded he was mentally ill, but still legally responsible. Thus, the verdict: guilty but mentally ill. So it happened on January 26th of 1996. Without any confirmed motive, John just drove up to the home of Olympic champion David Schultz. He called David outside. As David approached, he pew-pewed him multiple times. Dave's wife, Nancy, watched in horror. No clear motive ever has been established. Many investigators believe John's worsening paranoia played a major role, but there is no definitive explanation. Okay, so this is where we see the privilege as well. So after he did that, he barricaded himself inside Foxcatcher Mansion. Police surrounded the estate for nearly 2 days. Eventually, authorities shut off the mansion's heat during the freezing winter. When he came outside to investigate the boiler, he was arrested without further violence. So there's more to that too, you guys. Like, they have phone calls where they called John, like a negotiator, and John was like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Like that entitlement, like, and they're like, bro, you just unalived someone with multiple witnesses. Right. So, yeah, rugs do go back, but not Coca-Cola. We've actually covered that. If you guys check out my Ulyssean Mysteries, it was more psychedelics that they were doing. So anyway, I think that I think they try to use the rugs as an excuse, but it's not. There's something deeper going on here. So perhaps the strangest request of all, John requested being buried. So he passed away in prison. He received 13 to 30 years. He spent the remainder of his life in prison. Even there, he reportedly continued exhibiting eccentric behaviors and maintained many of his grandiose beliefs. And he was buried in his Foxcatcher wrestling singlet in the family graveyard. So here is, I did want to do, that's something for the opening. I wanted to show you guys too about the mother. If I have it here. Did I have it here? Where is the mother? I wanted to, because the mother's, anyway. Oh, here we go. So the MK Ultra this one occasionally pops up online. The theory used to go DuPont family had military contractors. The 3-letter agency worked with the DuPont company. Oh, interesting. I'm going to pull Mama Nurse. I'm going to pull your comment up in a second once we get through this. That the 3-letter agency worked with the DuPont company when this mine stuff, again, I have to watch my words so you can see it on the screen if you want. That's why I put it up here, was for you guys. Now, of course, they're going to say there's no evidence, but I think we see circumstantial evidence. I think we absolutely see circumstantial evidence here. All right. So anyway, was John actually insane? Again, and we get into, there's so much into this, guys. I know we're over an hour now. We've got even more to go through. So I'm gonna just kind of let you guys know that his mother was kind of weird too. Like, there was some definite, at minimum, mommy issues going on. But I dare say she was probably more abusive than his father's side of the family. That's just from what I gather. And the mother is also an heiress. This is the house, you guys, that he went back to. I pulled that up to show you guys. Like, after he unalived this guy, he went and just like went back home. And the police would try to call and he'd be like, I'm not going to deal with that. That's the entitlement, right? Lived nearby. Legitimate rumor that he was set up by the wife of Coach having an affair. Interesting. So you think somebody, can you explain that more? Because that's an interesting perspective, Mama Nurse Bev. Do you think that they kind of drove John crazy? That the wife drove John to the point of unaliving her husband because he was having an affair? Is that what, I mean, that's wild. That's a really interesting perspective if that's true. Like, if she knew that he was unstable and pushed him to the point to like unalive her husband for revenge. I don't know. That's really interesting, Mama Nurse Fair. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, anybody who lives in the area, because I know people who live in this area probably have a lot more. Like, I live in Atlanta, so Atlanta's heavily influenced by Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is from Atlanta, like real Coca-Cola, not the Coca-Cola we were just talking about, but like real Coca-Cola. I grew up with the Coca-Cola kids, right? So we're heavily influenced by Coca-Cola. So let me know, Bev, Mama Nurse Bev, or anybody from the area, like, please give me information, because I know it's one thing to study an area and its influence, and it's another thing to live there. Okay, cool. Okay, well, if the source wants to tell me more information, I absolutely will keep her name anonymous or his name anonymous. They can email me at my channel name. It's just esotericatlanta@gmail.com. And they can absolutely remain anonymous if they want to share this information. Because DuPont, I mean, I feel like I'm going to become like a DuPont. I'm going to become a DuPont expert at this point. But yeah, tell him or her. It's just esotericatlanta@gmail.com. And if they want to contact me, to put like DuPont in the subject line, or anybody who knows more information. And even if you don't want to, if you want to remain anonymous, I deal with people all the time that want to remain anonymous. So absolutely, I respect that. I totally get it, especially if you live in the area. I'm down in Atlanta. What are they going to do to me? Right. Like, so just put whatever, anybody, put DuPont in the family or in the subject line or something. And I'll get your email and I'll contact you. So I think he did, Angie, because it's been in a lot of medical records. It was a horseback riding accident that happened. A brutal one. And I wonder though, I mean, I'm not a man and I don't know, like, would that like mess with your mind too, if you're a man and you lose that? I don't know. Anyway, so guys, that's the story of that guy. I am going to take we're going to do a little, I need to drink some water because we got to go through, Teflon. Now we're going to get into Teflon before we get into Satanville. So I'm going to play like a 6-minute ad just so I can go to the bathroom and get some water before we get into the next section. Feel free to use this time to go to the bathroom as well and get something to drink as well if you're watching it live. And I'll see you guys in like 6 minutes. Please join us at Fusion Body Studio, though. We would love to have you.
Welcome back to Fusion Body Studio. Today, I am so excited to share 2 brand new workouts that were filmed in one of my favorite places in the entire world, Pawleys Island, South Carolina. If you've been with me for a while, you know that Pawleys Island isn't just another filming location for me. It's a place filled with memories, history, mystery, and some of the happiest moments of my childhood. Growing up, I spent countless summers with my family here in Pawleys Island, surrounded by the salt air, the sound of the ocean, and the laid-back charm that makes Pawleys Island unlike anywhere else in the world. This is the home of the famous rope hammocks that have become a symbol of the low country lifestyle. It's home to stories of the legendary Gray Man, the mysterious ghost said to appear before major hurricanes. It's home to the beautiful Adelaide Castle with its fascinating history and lingering mysteries. You'll see the iconic houses perched on stilts, designed to weather coastal storms, and you'll experience the natural beauty and the unique culture that have made Pawleys Island a beloved destination for generations. Most importantly, this is my family's hometown, and that makes this place special in my heart. And I couldn't think of a better backdrop for these 2 new Fusion Body Studio workouts. The first class is a brand new 45-minute express bar fusion workout, and I absolutely love this one because I was not alone for the filming. Joining me is senior yoga teacher Todd Roderick, my amazing 12-year-old niece Jacqueline, and my brother-in-law Stephen. Now, Stephen brings something very unique to this workout. He is an ultra marathon runner. For those who may not know, the ultra marathon runners go beyond the traditional 26.2 mile marathon distance. Many races are 50 kilometers, 50 miles, 100 miles, or even longer. These athletes train for incredible endurance, spending countless hours on the road and trails. One of the reasons I wanted Stephen in this class is because bar training offers tremendous benefit for long distance runners. Bar helps strengthen the stabilizing muscles around the hips, knees, ankles, and core. It improves balance, posture, muscular endurance, and joint stability while helping correct muscle imbalance that can develop from repeated running. Stronger glutes, stronger hips, and better alignment can contribute to more efficient movement and potentially reduce the risk of overused injuries. Whether you're a runner, a walker, a yogi, or simply someone looking to improve overall strength and mobility, bar can be an incredible complement to your existing fitness routine. The best part is that this class is truly designed for all levels. Whether you're brand new to bar or you've been practicing for years, you'll find the options that work for your body in this class. For equipment, you'll need a stable surface such as a chair, countertop, wall table, or ballet bar. You may also choose to use light hand weights and a small exercise ball, but both are completely optional. Expect a fun, supportive workout filled with strengthening movements, balance challenges, and plenty of opportunities to improve posture, flexibility, and overall body awareness. The second new release is a 40-minute cardio flush workout designed to get you moving, sweating, and feeling energized. This class is all about creating circulation throughout the body and helping you work up a healthy sweat. While our bodies naturally detox through organs like the liver and the kidneys, movement and sweating can support overall wellness by encouraging circulation and helping you feel refreshed and revitalized. This workout combines low-impact cardio with full-body conditioning to elevate your heart rate while remaining accessible to a wide range of fitness levels. If you'd like an additional challenge, you can add a pair of light dumbbells for extra resistance, but they are completely optional. You'll still get an excellent workout just using your body weight. This class is the perfect class for those days when you want to boost your energy, get your blood flowing, and leave feeling accomplished without spending hours exercising. And if you've been thinking about joining Fusion Body Studio, now is the perfect time. Use code BRYCE20 at checkout and receive 20% off your first 6 months of tuition. We also offer a 7-day free trial, giving you an entire week to explore our classes, meet our instructors, and make sure Fusion Body Studio is the right fit for you before making a commitment. From hundreds of classes ranging from bar and strength training to yoga, cardio, mobility, and beginner programs, and a wellness education, there's truly something for everyone regardless of age, experience level, and fitness background. While you're connecting with us, don't forget to check out our brand new YouTube channel, where we'll be sharing inspiring interviews, practical wellness tips, educational content, and deep dives into health, movement, spirituality, and personal growth. And be sure to follow us on Instagram for the latest updates, behind the scenes contents, announcements, and notifications whenever a new workout and video drops. Together, these 2 brand new workouts capture everything I love about Fusion Body Studio. Movement that meets you where you are, workouts that are effective and accessible, and the opportunity to connect mind, body, and spirit while enjoying some of the most beautiful scenery in the country. I hope you'll join us on Polly's Island for both of these new classes. Whether you're strengthening and toning with our Express Bar Fusion workout or sweating it out with our Cardio Flush class, I think you're going to feel the magic of this special place while giving your body exactly what it needs. Thank you for being a part of the Fusion Body Studio family. I can't wait for you to experience these new workouts, and I'll see you on the mat and on the beautiful shores of Polly's Island, South Carolina.
All right, you guys, thanks for letting me go to the bathroom for a second, because we're already over an hour and a half in and we still got a lot of shit talking to do about the DuPont. So the next thing is even, in my opinion, more infuriating. And I'm sure this is something a lot of you guys, especially my older crowd, I mean, if I have youngsters in here, you might not remember this, but this is the Teflon incident. And so first and foremost, I'm going to pull this up for you guys. The Devil We Know. This is a really good documentary about what happened with the Teflon C8 chemical issue. Because remember, the DuPonts are chemists. Chemists are alchemists. And Todd and I watched this again. Now, we have no Teflon. Todd has been very funny about that. Like, none of our cooking appliances have Teflon. He's 11 years older than me, so he remembers more of this than I do. But of course, you can't really avoid it because it's like in popcorn bags, it's in our canned soup. This chemical is this C8 chemical is the problem, is the C8 chemical. And so these chemists, these DuPonts, are literally, their whole empire is based off of literally unaliving people, from the pew pew powder to their Teflon. Of course, they also now are with General Motors. It's a very dark industry. And we watched this documentary last night before bed, which Dark Waters, the other movie that Mark Ruffalo is in about the DuPont scandal, is about this Teflon scandal. So check out Dark Waters, check out Foxcatcher with Steve Carell and Mark Ruffalo. And then, of course, this is a documentary, award-winning documentary. So these like DuPonts, man, the way they've set up their business, and this is from what I understand, and a lot of researchers are very speculative about the DuPont franchise now. So, especially if you watch this documentary, you'll see a lot of the people that were held responsible for the crimes that happened with the C8 chemical and Teflon were not DuPonts. Like the DuPonts now, their company is so big that they have other CEOs, they have other people working there, but allegedly there is still a board that sits above, and it's all DuPont family members that are still controlling. Even from the outside, it looks like it's a public company now, and other people, it's just carrying the DuPont name. But no, a lot of, again, a lot of researchers like, don't let that fool you. There is a family board. Now, this goes back, this family board, there's speculation again, a lot of researchers, that this family board not only helps manage the DuPont empire, the company, but also still adheres to the family contract of cousin marriages. They still are paying money to be able to legally allow certain women who might not appear to be a cousin, because they might now have a different name because they're the daughter of the daughter of the daughter, that are marrying back into their cousin, a DuPont. So, and that's why I brought up at the beginning about the different laws in the United States with how related you can be to somebody. It's gross. Like, if you need to a law, I'm sorry, humans can be so dumb. Like, we shouldn't even need those laws. It should just be common sense. Like, gross. That's so gross. That's so gross. Like, to marry your cousin, like, that's so gross. Like, ew. Like, that's so disgusting. Don't do that. Don't do that. Even in the animal world, like I dog rescue in India, and I've learned a lot from street dogs. Street dogs know who their cousins are, who their sisters are, who their moms are. They never interbreed with those that are closely genetically related to them. If a wild animal has figured this out, why haven't some humans? Don't do that. You want to get rid of that long ass weird nose? Stop inbreeding. So anyway, exactly. So they believe that this board of DuPont still controls not only the enterprise, but also arranges with the United States government a little baksheesh, a little bribery money to be able, exactly, Dragonfly, to be able to continue this weird, sick, gross practice of marrying cousins. That's disgusting. It's so gross. So I would highly recommend you guys, though, from the more, this doesn't get into the kissing cousin thing, but the Devil We Know, it's an incredible documentary. So I'm going to now pull up this article just to explain it more about what happened. And again, feel free, you guys, especially if you guys live in the area or you remember when this popped off, when they actually had to be accountable for poisoning everyone. Like 99% of Americans have this C8 chemical, and we all have this in our blood now. But thank you to the DuPonts. 99% of Americans have this chemical in their bloodstream because of the DuPonts. These wicked, wicked people. All right, so let's go through this. Broadcasting. So this is about the documentary that I just showed you guys that you should absolutely watch. Broadcasting from the Sundance Film Festival. We are joined by 3 guests who personally battled with the DuPont and are featured in the new documentary called The Devil We Know, and looks at how the former DuPont employees, residents, and lawyers took on the chemical giant to expose the dangers of chemical 8 found in Teflon and countless household products, from stain and water-resistant apparel to microwave popcorn bags to dental floss. The chemical has now been linked to 6 diseases, including testicular and kidney, big C. We speak with Bucky Bailey. That's such a sad case. We're going to talk about Bucky Bailey in a minute, whose mother worked in the Teflon division of DuPont plant in West Virginia while she was pregnant with him, who was born with only 1 nostril and a deformed eye and has undergone more than 30 surgeries to fix the birth defects. Joe Kiger, lead plaintiff in class action lawsuit against the DuPonts, and a school teacher in Parkersburg, West Virginia, who suffered from liver disease, and Rob Billitt, the attorney that brought the DuPonts to court. And Mark Ruffalo plays Rob Billitt in the Dark Waters movie. So anyway, I'm going to show you guys. Let me pull this off the screen and let me put up. This is thanks to the DuPonts. And this guy in the documentary, like, I liked him so much. He's now married. He's got his own children. Thank God they didn't pass down. But can you imagine being pregnant and having a baby with only one nostril and a deformed eye? This poor guy is poor. Listen, DuPonts, just because you inbreed and are deformed doesn't mean you have to make the rest of us deformed. They were putting things into the water there, like a lot of and this is what's great. This is what's great with the DuPonts. Let me just let you in on a little bit of information. When they were testing these chemicals to use to make Teflon, they have a medical person that signs off on everything. They tested this chemical, and I'm not for animal testing, but this is just to let you guys kind of know what happened. They tested this chemical on rats, and the rats' babies ended up coming out with like one eye and one nostril. Same thing. And the doctors still signed off on it. And in the deposition, they were like, why did you, it's obviously not safe for women. He goes, yeah, it's safe for women. It's just not safe for pregnant women. Like, what's the difference, bro? What's the difference? And I'm going to say something to the DuPonts, because if you are Satanist and you do practice, I know you guys have to follow the rules of consent. Oh, I don't frankly consent to this C8 bullshit. And frankly, if your great patriarch, Pierre Samuel, was actually guillotined, maybe we wouldn't be dealing with this bullshit right now. Because nobody else has created this. Nobody else thought to. Why do we need nonstick pans? Come on. Are we that lazy that we need nonstick pans? We can wash a pan. We can use oil. I don't want C8 in my dental floss. I don't consent to that. I mean, it is disgusting. Like, no, DuPonts, no, stop. I mean, I cannot believe, but it was one of the biggest class action cases, and they actually took it to court. And I think the DuPonts were kind of cocky, thinking that there's no way they could lose, and they did, because they did not take into consideration the jury, right? And so I'm going to show this article now, you guys. Secret test conducted in 1984 by the DuPont Chemical Company found a Teflon-related contaminant, CA, in tap water of his Little Hocking Waters Association in Ohio, just across the river from the company's Teflon plant in Parkersburg, West Virginia. But the company never told the community, its water utility, or state regulators about the tap water testing program, which continued through at least 1989, about the positive findings. The existence of Ohio tests for C8 came to light through internal company documents obtained in court proceedings by lawyers representing several thousand Parkersburg area residents who have sued DuPont for polluting tap water on the other side of the river. Now, for my young people, back in the 80s and the 90s, it was very common to just get some water from the tap, right? Now we all have filtered water, but that was common back then. Today, tap water in Little Hocking is contaminated with C8 at levels exceeding 4 parts per billion. And the company's water supplier has taken on its 4 production wells offline because of high C8 levels. All right. So anyway, you guys, terrible. I'm going to actually put this article in the chat, so you guys can read it for yourself as well. And of course, I highly recommend watching this documentary because it is wild. They tried, so the original with the deformities, the original guy who was the whistleblower had sold some land to the DuPont, and he was a farmer, and all his cattle died, and it's crazy. And they tried to make him out to be like a wackadoo when literally it's wild, what they're putting in our water. 99% of Americans, 99% of us have C8 in our bloodstream without our consent. And it doesn't matter how, we don't have Teflon. We've never had Teflon here. We don't use any of the DuPont products here. But there's other ways it comes into us. So this is where the DuPonts need to be held absolutely responsible. They put this stuff into the process of making Teflon, knowing knowing that it does this to people, that it does things like this to people. What kind of a psychopath does that? Like again, if DuPonts are watching this, I'm not going to ever disregard your business skills because you were good in business. Your great ancestor was willing to do a job that not many people are willing to do, maybe because he was slightly psychopath, narcissistic. I don't know. There's been lots of claims that you guys have a lot of narcissists in your family. I'm not, you're good at business. But at what point do you stop being able to sleep at night because you are disregarding human life, animal life? In our Constitution, it says, and in our Declaration of Independence, actually, it says we have the right to pursue happiness. You can't do anything to stop that. That's against the law. You should all be in prison. You should be in fucking prison. All y'all on that board should be in prison. This Teflon issue, it is bonkers. And that's another reason why, if I were a DuPont, I would be embarrassed. I would be mortified that my family was this openly psychotic. And again, DuPont's like, if you don't want people whispering about you being Satanist, stop doing shit like this. Stop doing shit. You don't need any more money. When is the greed enough? It's wild. Like after watching that documentary last night, I was so mad. I would rather be poor and living in a beat up trailer, not knowing where my next meal was coming from, than be a DuPont. Because at least us peasants can sleep at night. I don't know how you guys sleep at night. It's crazy. Yeah, it's them. They're just terrible humans. They're service to self. Yeah, it's not the demons making them do it. You're right. People don't want to take accountability. They don't, yeah. And there's all these, the psychiatrist also talks about how many people have been accused of being narcissistic in the DuPont family. And I agree. I think that's obvious. So, I'm going to leave it that, there's a lot with the Teflon stuff, a lot of big C's, people in the area of West Virginia where the plants are ended up with the big C. Teflon knew it. They knew that their employees working with C8 would end up having health issues from it, having fetuses come like that. And they didn't tell their employees. They just let them continue working, not knowing. When this baby was born, he's 2 years older than me. The mother said, like, she knew right away it was DuPont. And she said she walked in and she goes, I know you did this to my kid. But she couldn't stop working for them because she needed the money. She needed the health insurance to take care of the child that they fucked up. And it wasn't until it was like after 1996. If you guys hear an alarm, somebody's car alarm is going off, I apologize. But John DuPont unalived the wrestler in 1996. This started going to court in like 1999. So it was like one thing after the other with these DuPonts. And I was listening to one guy talk about the DuPonts, and they're like, well, nobody of the DuPont family really is left anymore. Bro, there are 2,500 people of them left. The DuPonts are absolutely thriving right now. They did not stop. They are still out there doing this shit. So yeah, the DuPonts, we can't hold generations now responsible for things their ancestors did. I agree. We can't be responsible for our ancestors, so we can't hold them responsible for theirs. But for for my generation, you best be course correcting this shit. You best be course correcting. Because this is embarrassing. Like, how embarrassing, how gross is it to be a DuPont? Like, I don't care how much money you have. That's embarrassing. You're white trash, you DuPonts. You are white trash. Anyway, I get passionate when I see this happen to innocent human beings who don't deserve it. Don't deserve it. So now we've built up to the grand finale, which is the legend and alleged satanic rituals that happen. So I'm going to pull another article up, you guys, because this story is so hard to follow. I cannot find the location anymore. I'm going to show a map and show you guys, and a lot of researchers that it took me, I was hearing like in my research, I was hearing like all these whispers of like cult activity, blah, 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 blah. But I could not find the actual source of it until last night. Till last night, I stumbled upon a blog. And once I stumbled upon the blog, I got the address, I got the name of the road, and I was able to then dig deeper because they have tried to bury this shit. And apparently people from the area know about it, but for the general public, they have tried to bury this shit, which makes me think, okay, this is not just an urban legend. There's something to this because it took me forever to find this. Let's see here. Let me pull this up. So I'm just going to read you this blog that this girl wrote because it is best. I think it's always best to hear from somebody who is local. And then we're going to look at some Reddit stuff as well. So Satan's Hill in my early 20s, a retrospective. Some of us call it Satan's Hill. Others call it Satanville. Online on one of many sites exploring the idiosyncrasy of it's been almost 2 hours, guys. I'm starting to lose my words. Urban legend of particular geographical region. It's referred to as Cult House Road. In actuality, in terms of real time and space, is known as Corset Road. Everyone knew it as Satan's Hill, or everyone knew about Satan's Hill. There are not a lot of urban legends housed in the corner of Pennsylvania where I grew up, but we had this one, and it was particularly a rite of passage to learn about it. That's the thing, though. Most people, students, of course, isn't the age and environment the most fertile breeding ground for the type of stories that make you shiver. Did only learn about it. Very few went. Mostly because it's nearly impossible to find. Agreed. A tiny widening foreboding turnoff from a random road in the rolling wooded sinuous expansion called the Valley, winding in and out of Pennsylvania and Delaware, recognizable by what used to be a rickety one-lane corridor over a stream that is now an ornately constructed cover bridge. This is the hard thing about reading blogs. No offense to this girl, but sometimes it's hard to read their writing because it's not edited. All right, the stories were legend. First, because this was right on the border of Delaware, there was the one about the DuPonts. The DuPonts own Delaware, literally. They also own DuPont, the chemical company, and DuPont, the hospital, and you don't grow up near or in Delaware without knowing about the DuPonts. Mainly because it's rumored they intermarry. Is not rumored. That is actually documented fact. They intermarry between family members to keep their considerable wealth to themselves. Popular culture backs this up with the true life tragedy of the Foxcatcher estate, where John DuPont, reportedly insane due to inbreeding, unalived Olympic wrestler Dave Schultz in 1996. So Satan's Hill was notable first because of the cult house, which is allegedly a house owned by the DuPonts where they stash the genetic mistakes resulting from their intermarriages, inadvertently breeding, you guessed it, a cult. Similar antidotes go further to define the cult as a satanic group that worship in the old DuPont house and use said genetic mistakes in their rituals. The evidence? Well, a few things. The trees, for one. The trees, in apparent defiance of scientific law, grow away from the cult house, which is also incidentally away from the sunlight. That's weird, right? Plants go towards, and I have here's a picture right here. I have pictures as well. They're not cut like this. They grow like this. Far enough past the cult house, they resume growing towards, the light, like goddamn normal trees. Then there's the skull tree. The legends range as to this one from the belief that the stillborn DuPont children were buried among the roots, and thus the tree took on a shape of a skull. So the tale that an aborted fetus was found in a large knot hole that resembles an eye socket or a face in the trunk. Regardless, there's always similar grain of dead baby and supernatural forces which accompany these stories of the skull tree. So this skull tree, I've researched this last night and this morning deeper into this because, again, I only found concrete evidence of this satanic cult last night when I found this blog. Finally, this tree has since now, the authorities have now put bricks in and closed it up, and there are actual documented police reports of a baby being found here years ago. So that's not speculative. That actually happened. It sure sounds like BS, but people have stories, the same stories, being chased by large black SUVs and trucks, disembodied voices, strange images, and graffiti that pop up. I can attest to the last one. I spent a lot of time on Satan's Hill. You see, my ride or die, my best friend Lindsay and I at that time were racked with the emu in the suburbs and needed to have adventures. So we would drive through the valley at breakneck speed, smoking cigarettes and listening to music, attempting to scare ourselves silly on the haunted road we were lucky enough to locate because it ended coincidentally mere steps from her childhood home. One night we drove down Satan's Hill and rode to something or other with college-age girls too young to drink were en route to during spring break. All was normal, creepy but normal. Not long after, we returned and splashed across the speed limit sign not long after we returned and splashed across a speed limit sign that had been an hour ago but clean was the explosion of blood red paint splatter, already dry, no explanation. The other reason Satan Hill is notable is because it was the location of one Mr. M. Night Shyamalan's film, The Village. Significant because it improved the cell surface in the valley back in 2004 when a tower needed to erect to receive text messages, and significant because Ride or Die and I snuck up onto the set one time in the middle of the night when some production assistant foolishly left the left gate to the private land unlocked. Anyway, so I am going to, so that's her blog. I'm going to go to Reddit because she does take kind of a more skeptical approach to this, which I get. So basically, let's just reiterate this for a second before we even look at this person's blog. So I'm going to switch over to this map. Did that switch for you guys? No. Okay, hold on one second. Let me pull the map up. I've tried to locate this place. Again, I only found this last night, so I would love to hear people's stories. Because it took me forever to find this. I saw whispers of a cult, but it wasn't until I found that blog that I actually had actual name to put in. So let's see here. I put in the address. So apparently the address, and this isn't doxing because no one technically lives there. It's 701 Coastal Road, Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. So I typed it in here, but I can't find it. I have blown the map up. I've shrunken it. I've tried to find the actual road, but all it does is it takes me to Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania, which is right here. You guys see that? That's Chadds Ford. Okay, this is the Brandywine River. Yeah, so this is the Pennsylvania-Delaware state line. So for those who are not from the United States, because I've gotten this question before, when you cross a state line, there's no pomp and circumstance. There's no checks, nothing like that. You don't even know sometimes you've passed the state line. So even though the DuPont family is from Delaware is one of our smaller states, okay? It's very easy for them to bleed into Pennsylvania, right? So I actually looked up from this address to Foxcatcher Estates is only 12 miles. That's really close. It's a 10, 15-minute drive from where this supposed, these rituals took place with the DuPonts and where Foxcatcher Farm is located, where John DuPont lived. And remember, he spoke about tunnels. And so does that make sense what I'm getting at? And there are accounts. I'm going to switch over to Reddit now because there's an account and it's Reddit. So who knows, but it's interesting nonetheless that I wanted to read to you guys. Whoops, where are we? Okay, share screen, Reddit. Reddit can be a cesspool, but sometimes you can find gold on Reddit. So I have an account on Reddit, but it's just for me to look stuff up, guys. So you don't need to follow it or anything. I don't post anything on Reddit. So the cult on Devil's Road. What I'm about to tell you is 100% true. A little backstory before I began my personal narrative. There's a back road in Pennsylvania named Devil's Road, but it's formerly known as Corsart Road. You can Google this road and read about its paranormal history. M. Night Shyamalan even filmed the village here. To give a brief summary, the DuPonts owned a mansion on Corset Road years ago. It was nicknamed the Cult House because of strange activities that occurred on the property, including reported black magic and neighbors hearing unexplained demonic voices in the surrounding woods. Hold a second. I thought I saw something. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see here. Locals have even said that the DuPont family married their cousins to ensure their wealth would stay in the family. Like any typical teen, I wanted to investigate the legends surrounding this creepy road. It was the Saturday before Halloween in 2011 that my friends and I decided to take a drive out to Corset Road. It was around 10 p.m. when we arrived there, a completely dark and wooded area with no houses in sight. My two friends and I drove down the back roads all alone, taking notice of the many trees that were sprayed with graffiti. About 5 minutes later, we arrived at the Cult House. I told my friend to park the car on the side of the road so we could get a better look at the mansion. We stepped out and noticed a large gate with a metal fence that surrounded the entire front property. There was a long driveway behind the gate that continued uphill towards the mansion. We could barely see the house because of trees that lined the driveway blocking our view. My friend then pointed to the right of the houses and told us to look at the large bonfire in the woods. I peered over in the direction that he was pointing and noticed about 8 to 10 people surrounding the fire. What was very, very peculiar to me was the fact that these people were dressed in red hooded outfits. I then realized that this must have been some kind of cult gathering. My friend and I were in complete shock at what we were witnessing. A few minutes later, we began hearing vehicles approaching us from the surrounding cornfields. My friend and I ran to the car and jumped inside. I turned around to the passenger seat and witnessed 2 black SUVs appear out of the cornfields and onto the road. I could see each driver wearing the same red hood but was unable to make out any facial features. I told my buddy to start the car and go as fast as possible, as this was a threatening situation. We took off and approached 50 miles per hour on the winding back roads, but could not find no relief as the SUVs were right behind us. Their high beams blinded our sight as we made our way through the wooded back roads. The one SUV went into the other lane and sped up to pass us. Now in front, the SUV put his brakes on to force us to stop. My friend panicked and decided to switch lanes and speed up to avoid the driver. Driving in the opposite lane, we were able to escape both drivers. I looked in the mirrors to see that they were slowing down and becoming distant. The road was coming to an end, but we had no intent of slowing down. My buddy stopped at the last second and turned left onto a new back road. I turned around and could see that each SUV had stopped at the end of the road. They turned off their headlights and sat there, blocking us from entering Corset Road. We just kept driving until we reached the main highway. That confrontation left us speechless as we couldn't find the words to describe the fear we were experiencing. To this day, I have not returned to Devil's Road. I'm going to put this in the comment section to you guys. Like, again, it's Reddit. Who knows? There's a lot of crazy shit on Reddit, but I believe this guy. This guy has no reason, right, to lie. I don't know why that broke up in two, but anyway, so basically the story goes, what I've learned so far is that this is the area. So this is like a 12-mile radius from what I've researched. Let me know if that mileage is wrong. That's just what I've read, where it's all different estates that are owned by the DuPonts that kind of cross over into Delaware. And they've been owned by the DuPonts for a very long time. Like I told you, Foxcatcher in 1996, an 800-acre estate, was the single biggest piece of private land owned. So it's like you're on public roads, but you're surrounded by private land. Now, there are houses in the area. Here's the picture of the trees that I pulled for you guys that pull away from the area where they think a lot of the satanic stuff goes on. There's a lot of old houses around the area that are owned by the DuPonts. And there's legends that a lot of the children born that are like inbred or super disformed and disfigured, they keep here at these houses. Some people say they use them as their, you know, I'm watching my words, their thing for their, you know, their sacrifice, basically, for their rituals. And that, to me, there's tons of stories of people witnessing hooded figures being run off the road. The road is public, right? That's what's weird. The road is actually public. It's the property around it that's private. So anyway, you can find some YouTube channels during the day where people go in and walk around. The fact that the trees pull away, it's really weird that the trees pull away. I watched a video this morning of someone trying to explain it scientifically as why the trees pull away, but it made no sense what this guy was saying. It made no sense. And they have now bricked up that weird skull tree so people can't go in and look and see what's in there. So what do you guys think? Do you think this is more proof of their satanic practices? Anyway, you guys, this was a long show. I knew it would be. I want to also remind you guys, because there is more DuPont drama. And that I can't, I would be here all day if I went through every single person of the DuPonts that had scandals. Like, we would be here all day. But if you go over to Rumble, if you have not watched the full DuPont episode I did on Rumble, sharing Fritz Springmeier's work and some of my own research, I'm going to pull that up again. It's right here. It's this one from 7 days ago. Starts off with Nancy Grace talking about the PDF file, the DuPont who pled guilty to PDF filing his daughter and basically got off for it. That's what it starts with. And it gets into, the unaliving of another DuPont in Louisville. They're big in Louisville too. And so you can check that out over on Rumble too for more information. Again, I know there's stories I left out, but I picked the ones I felt like could give us a clearer picture of maybe what's happening in this family. So anyway, all right, you guys. So one thing too, before we sign off, I'm going to try this. So YouTube is now doing this thing where you can tag products. And I've had a lot of people question, because Tamara and I talked about Health Force, and I'm going to try to tag it after we're done. I'm not sponsored by them. If they want to sponsor me, I love it. But people keep asking me to remind them. This is my favorite health food. It's called Vitamineral Green, and it's from the company Health Force, which again, I'm going to tag them hopefully once this video processes, so it's easier for you to find it. And again, it's a superfood. It's a powder. They have it in pill form too. I've never done the pill form. This bottle can be quite expensive. I can't remember how much I paid for it, but it lasts forever. Like, this will probably last me a year. And it is, so it's an extremely potent, Vitamineral Green is an extremely potent, hardcore green superfood complex combining the most nutrient-dense superfoods on the planet in an easy-to-use powder featuring, it's got all the different vitamins and minerals. It's a glass bottle. And I put this in, you can put it in water, but it's kind of gross to put in water. I put it in applesauce. And if I were stuck on a desert island and I needed something, I would bring this, because this is a mega health food. I love the company Health Force. I've been using Health Force now for most of my adult life before I was even on YouTube. I take it to India with me. And anytime I've had questions about their products, you can call them and you're going to get an actual person, right? They're really nice. They'll help you find the products that work well for you. But Vitamineral Green, I think, is something good for everybody, especially looking at the fact that we all have C8 in our blood. Like, it makes me want to do even more of this. I also use their enzymes, digestive enhancement enzymes. These help me as well because I have terrible digestion. So that's another product I use of theirs. I've used a lot of their products. They have great probiotics, prebiotics, intestinal movement formula for people who have terrible digestion too, helps you. And so, since so many people have asked me about that, again, I'm not sponsored by them. This is literally a product that I've been using for years, and I really like it. I can feel a huge difference in the way I feel in my health and my recovery from working out when I'm more consistent with doing their products. And then they're not, they're good unlike the DuPonts. They're really integral. Like, there have been times where I've called them about, like, intestinal movement formula stopped working for me. It started making me kind of sick, and I called them. And instead of trying to, like, upsell me with other products, they were like, listen, there must be something in here that your body is allergic to. So we would suggest you stop taking this product. And that's their own product, right? And they were like, maybe you should take. So they're really integral. They're really nice. They know what they're talking about. And so I'm going to try, once this video processes on YouTube, it's going to take like 24 hours for it to process. I'm going to then go back and tag it so that it might be, I don't know if it'll show up in the description box or something, so it helps you find it easier if you want to try it. They'll let you send stuff back too. Like if you try a product and you don't like it, they will take it back. They are really good. They are a very integral company. So probably why they're not billionaires like the DuPonts, because they actually have integrity. So we're going to help them out by promoting them. All right, you guys, thank you so much for sitting through that. I knew that was going to be a long one because there's so much going on with the DuPonts. And again, if you have anything you want to add to the conversation around the DuPonts, if you're a whistleblower, you know anything, just send me an email at esotericatlanta@gmail.com, put DuPonts in the subject. If you want to remain anonymous, you absolutely can remain anonymous. If you want to come on the show, you can come on the show too. It's totally up to you. And so don't, even though the DuPonts are, it's pretty obvious, they're probably the most whacked out of all the family members or all the families I've studied so far. Again, we don't do vigilante violence. Just be, oh, thanks, Lori. Actually, I'm about to promote because next week, you guys, anyway, don't do vigilante violence, guys. Just be cool. Like, don't turn into the people we're trying to expose. Just be cool. Like, people sometimes can have a last name and they have nothing to do with all the shenanigans. Now, the Sacred Secret Society, Lorene, our favorite ex-Mormon, next week, starting on Monday, we're going to be getting into the Freeman family. Who are the Freemans, you might ask? Well, this is going to get into the Priory of Sion. Yay. That one, that family. This is also going to get into the Mormons. So the Mormons have made their appearance into Fritz Springmeier's work. And so that's going to be next week where we start going in. We've got a Monday show where we're going to talk about Pierre Plantard and really go into, like, it's pre-recorded, it's more podcast form, information about the Priory of Sion, the Holy Grail, the Da Vinci Code, everything that's been exposed to us, like really summing up what this is, so that when Wednesday's episode drops, which next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, when that episode drops, there's more of a back understanding of where Fritz Springmeier is coming from in his dive into the Freeman family. Now, another note, I've had a lot of people ask about the Asian families. We are going to be getting into this. Work is going alphabetical. So that's why I'm going through it alphabetically. And so the Asian families are there. They are there, and we are going to get into them. Now, with that being said, I might move around some things. I might do some other families before others because of how my research looks. So we might go off of the alphabetical schedule, but we are going to be getting to the Lee family and other Eastern families that are allegedly part of this grand conspiracy. So don't worry, that's coming. That's coming. So, all right, you guys, with that being said, thank you so much for sitting through a long episode. I can feel my voice. I start to drop words when I get tired, so I can tell that this has been a long episode. But thank you so much, y'all. I'm trying to think what else is happening this week. Members only. Our next members only episode will drop either Tuesday or Wednesday, episode 3 of season 2, which we're going deeply into the Black-Eyed Kids, another terrifying topic. Thursday, Catherine will be back on my channel. We'll also be doing probably a Lou Lunch Live on Thursday over on Todd's channel. And then Friday, I got Hillis coming back on. And at some point, we're going to be doing another Cassiopean expose at some point this week. So, all right, you guys, with that being said, thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw here, please help us out by liking and sharing. Let me know. Even the replay crew, leave your country flag or something in the comment section. It helps the algorithms. Hype the video if you're on YouTube. And thank you so much from Rumble, guys, even though I can't really see a whole lot of what's going on Rumble. Thank you for being here and watching this. And I apologize again to our Rumble people for having to censor my words, but because we are simulcasting with YouTube, that's just what we got to do. So, all right, you guys, until next time, be a kind person. Don't be a DuPont. And I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.